Welcome back, Keyforgers. This is the second deck from our two-player Worlds Collide starter set. This one is Aquilan, Mistus the Ninth. Untamed Logos and Shadows. Nice face mask or a ship archon there. Bottom card coming out. We're starting out with Untamed. We have Curiosity. It's an action. You get an amber when you play it. Play, destroy each scientist creature. And we have Logos, so that's not going to be good right now either. Wild Spirit is an upgrade. You get an amber when you play it. This creature gains Reap, capture 1 amber. Panpacker Jagger, 3 power skirmish. Creatures to the left of Panpacker Jagger in the battle line gain skirmish. Grasping Vines is an action. You get an amber when you play it. Play, return up to 3 artifacts to their owner's hands. Gabuk, 5 power, destroyed. Discard the top card of your deck. If it is a creature, after Gabuk leaves play, put that creature into play in Gabuk's position in the battle line. Camouflage is an upgrade. You get an amber when you play it. Creatures on a flank cannot fight this creature. Regrowth is an action. You get an amber when you play it. Play, return a creature from your discard pile to your hand. Imprinted Murmoc, 3 power with elusive. Your keys cost -1 amber. A second imprinted Murmoc. Ghost Hawk, 2 power deploy. Play, you may reap with each neighbouring creature, 1 at a time. A second Ghost Hawk. Cauldron Boil is an action. You get an amber when you play it. Play, deal damage to each creature equal to the amount of damage on that creature. And on to Shadows. Quiet Anvil is an artifact. You get an amber when you play it. Keys cost -2 amber. After a player forges a key, destroy the Quiet Anvil. Gambling Den is an artifact. You get an amber when you play it. At the start of each player's turn, that player may choose a house. If they do, reveal the top card of their deck. If it is of the named house, they gain 2 amber. Otherwise, they lose 2 amber. Subtle Maul is an artifact. Action. Your opponent discards a random card from their hand. Spike Trap is an artifact. You get an amber when you play it. Omni ability. Sacrifice Spike Trap. If you do, deal 3 damage to each flank creature. Yancey Gang, 5 power, action steal 1. Trust No One is an action. Play, steal 1 amber. If there are no friendly creatures in play, instead steal 1 amber for each house represented among enemy creatures, to a maximum of 3. Mug is an action. You get an amber when you play it. Play, move 1 amber from a creature to your pool, deal 2 damage to that creature. A second Mug. Inky Gloom is an action. Play, your opponent cannot use creatures to reap on their next turn. Hugger Mugger, 3 power elusive. Play, capture 1 amber. Then if your opponent has more forge keys than you, steal 1 amber. A second Hugger Mugger. Hit and Run is an action. Play, deal 2 damage to a creature. Return a friendly creature to your hand. And finally on to a Logos. We are starting out with Vellum, 2 power, Reap, archive a card. If you control Hide, archive 2 cards instead. Destroyed, archive Hide from your discard pile. If you do, archive Vellum. And there's Hide, 4 power, Reap, draw a card. If you control Vellum, draw 2 cards instead. Destroyed, archive Vellum from your discard pile. If you do, archive Hide. Mini Group Think Tank, 3 power, 2 armor. Play, fight, reap, deal 8 damage to a creature that shares a house with 2 of its neighbours. Dr. Millie, 2 power. Play, for each creature your opponent controls in excess of you, not counting Dr. Millie, archive a card. Discombobulator is an upgrade. You get an amber when you play it. This creature gains, your amber cannot be stolen. A second Discombobulator. Anomaly Exploiter is an artifact. Action, destroy a damaged creature. Titan Guardian, 5 power, 1 armor with taunt. Destroyed. If Titan Guardian is not on a flank, draw 2 cards. A second Titan Guardian. Hologramophone is an artifact. You get an amber when you play it. Action, ward a creature. Eddie, 3 power. Play, archive a card. Your opponent's keys cost +1 amber for each card in your archives. Daughter, 2 power elusive. During your draw card step, refill your hand to 1 additional card. And there we have it. I think it's a little bit better than the previous one. I do like the Logos there. Let's take a closer look. More Keyforgers. I think this deck is better than the other one we pulled out of that box, but not by much. It did have 14 printed amber, which is pretty good. 17 creatures, 9 actions, 6 artifacts, and 4 upgrades. If we start with amber control, it's a lot better. We have the 2 mug in shadows. Now, we only really have 2 lots of capture, which is the 2 hugger muggers. So we could mug our hugger muggers when they capture. It wouldn't destroy our hugger muggers, and it would put the amber back into our pool, so actually it would gain us 2. We also had the Yahtzee gang to steal 1 action. That was, I think, the second highest powerful creature in the deck. Also in shadows we had the Trust No One, a straight steal 1, and then if we have no creatures, we'll steal 1 for the number of houses our opponent has, up to 3. Wild Spirit in Untamed, this creature gains Reap, capture 1. Probably a nice one to put on an elusive creature. Maybe that mini group think tank that we have. We can take the amber off with the mug. And then we did have the Eddy. We archive a card, and then our opponent's keys cost +1 for each card in our archives. That's a nice passive effect there. There was no scaling amber control, so we can steal, we can capture, and we can increase our opponent's key costs. When it comes to expected amber, I'm just going to lay some cards out now and then we'll talk about it. We had the Quiet Anvil, the Gambling Den, and the 2 imprinted Mermook. Now the reason I've put these 4 out is because there's a possibility that they can work together. You have the Quiet Anvil in play, the artifact where keys cost -2, that is for your opponent as well, and then after a player forges a key we destroy it. Works quite well with Gambling Den, where at the start of our turn, so before we forge a key, we can choose a house. If we do, reveal the top card of our deck. If it is of the named house, we gain 2 amber, otherwise we lose 2. If we can be sure what we're calling, or pretty sure what we're calling, and we've got Quiet Anvil in play, we could end our turn on 4, gain 2 through Gambling Den, and then forge a key. If we have the 2 imprinted Mermooks out, we could probably end our turn on 2 amber, and if things worked out, we could probably do it then. That's a nice little combo thing I saw there. We did have the 2 Ghost Hawks. 2 power deploy. You may reap with each neighbouring creature 1 at a time. We do have some really good reap effects in this deck. Namely Vellum and Hide, if they're both out together, is very, very nice. And then we had 2 Discombobulator upgrades. Now, these were part of our 4 upgrades. This creature gains your amber cannot be stolen. That is a fantastic passive effect. If we can put it on a creature that's unlikely to leave play, it can be a huge boost to us keeping our amber total that we've got. We did have artifact control, and like the other deck, we had that Grasping Vines. No Rust Nor in this one. Return up to 3 artifacts to the owner's hand. We do have 6. We could do it if we just wanted the amber. And then creature control. We had the Inky Gloom. Your opponent cannot use creatures to reap on their next turn. I was also going to put that under amber control because your opponent won't be able to reap, but it's a nice bit of control there as well. Hit and Run. Deal 2 damage to a creature and then return a friendly creature to our hand. Nice way to bounce Eddy back. Get another card in our archives. Spike Trap. Artifact with an Omni ability to deal 3 damage to each flank creature when we sacrifice it. Now I did put Curiosity in here. It's an action. We'll get an amber when we play it. Destroy each scientist creature. We have 5 scientists in this deck. We're probably not going to want to play that card unless our opponent has more scientists, and wiping the board would have a bigger effect on them. Panpacker Jagger I put in there as well because it gives all our creatures skirmish, making them a bit more effective when it comes to fighting. The Cauldron Boil. Deal damage to each creature equal to the amount of damage on that creature. Now we don't really have any direct damage in this deck. Maybe that Spike Trap, that's about it, and the Hit and Run. Not like the Twin Bottle Missions and the 4 Unsuspecting Prey that we had in the last deck. But if we do manage to damage a creature, we have the Anomaly Exploiter artifact in Logos. Bit more survivability for our creatures. We have that Hologramophone, and then we have that mini group Think Tank. 3 power, 2 armor, play, fight and reap, deal 8 damage to a creature that shares a house with 2 of its neighbours. When your opponent sees this, they're going to be very careful about how they're placing their creatures. And then the Camouflage. Upgrade from Untamed. Creatures not on a flank cannot fight this creature. There was efficiency in the deck. I mean, come on. We have logos, so there's going to be efficiency. We had the Hide and the Vellum. One archives a card on a Reap, one draws a card on a Reap. If they're both on the table, it's 2 archive or 2 Reap. When they're destroyed, if one of them's in the discard pile and the other one hits the discard pile, they both go into your archives. A very nice piece of recursion there. 2 Titan Guardians, 5 power, 1 arm with taunt. When it's destroyed, if it's not on a flank, we draw 2 cards. We had the Daughter to draw an extra card in our draw card step. That's a nice passive effect there. And then we had Dr. Millie. For each creature your opponent controls in excess of you, not counting Dr. Millie, archive a card. Very good card to play if you're behind on creatures or if you have been board wiped, but just bear in mind if you have a handful of creatures, you archive them all, that's your turn over. And then we had the Gabuk in Untamed. Very situational, because there's always a chance you won't hit a creature with that destroyed effect, but again, could be a little bit of efficiency from putting a creature straight into play. We had recursion and we did have disruption as well, so every single card fits into one of the categories. We had the regrowth. In recursion, return a creature from your discard pile to your hand if it's untamed. Obviously you can play it that turn. And then we had Subtle Maul, one of my favourite cards. Artifact in Shadows. Action, your opponent discards a random card from their hand. I love card hate. Do I think it's a competitive deck? No. Would I be happy if I drew it in a sealed? Yes, I would. Decks of Keyforge rated it at a 57. They said it wasn't that good. They kind of put it in the same category as the previous deck, but I would prefer getting this one. I can tell you that now. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to take it for a run on the Crucible. But apart from that, all that remains me to say is good luck, have fun, keep forging.